Welcome, dear First Mayor. Welcome, dear Excellencies. Welcome, dear esteemed guests, and everybody who made it here today to this wonderful, excellent panel. So, first of all, we heard already in the previous talk that it is an imperative that we find ways to execute sustainable cities and the measures that we take. And we are very grateful for our mayor today to lay with his speech the foundation of how achieving so. Please help me welcome our first mayor of the free and Hanseatic city of Hamburg, Dr. Peter Tschentscher.
Dear Minister Clarke, dear Acting City Director Ms. Shaibu, Executive Secretary Molcean, ladies and gentlemen, this panel will discuss the challenges and strategies for achieving sustainable cities. This is key to achieving the United Nations sustainability goals because, as I already mentioned in my opening remarks this morning, more than half of the world's population lives in cities. They consume 80% of the world's energy, produce 70% of greenhouse gas emissions, and generate more than half of the world's waste. My impulse for the panel will focus on the city of Hamburg, the second largest city in Germany, which is the third largest economy in the world. The Port of Hamburg connects Germany with international markets and secures the supply of the German economy and its citizens. International partnership is very important to Hamburg. We have a large network of relationships, especially with other port cities. Within our network, we see that the global cities face common challenges. They need to design a successful and inclusive education system. They have to organize urban transport efficiently. They have to use digitalization to improve administration and simplify the lives of their citizens. And they need a comprehensive strategy to achieve the goals of the Paris Agreement as soon as possible. To contribute to the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, the Hamburg Senate, our city's government, adopted a sustainability strategy in 2017 that covers 4 core areas: environment and city, sustainable economic and financial policy, participation and social cohesion, and education and science. For each individual SDG, we have defined measures and specific indicators that describe the status and progress towards each goal. In this way, the strategy is integrated into the work of the Senate, the city administration, and the city's enterprises. The strategy is complemented by a modern climate protection law and a climate plan that sets out 400 specific measures to achieve the legal targets for reducing carbon emissions. Hamburg is already acting sustainably in many areas. For example, in line with the SDG Life on Land, around 10% of Hamburg's land area is under nature conservation, providing a protected habitat for nature and wildlife. This is a leading position among German states. In the area of affordable and clean energy, we are systematically converting our energy supply to renewables. A big coal-fired power plant in Hamburg has been shut down in 2021. A green hydrogen power plant, a 100 megawatt electrolyzer, is now being built on this site. We have municipalized our district heating supply, which will be carbon neutral by 2030. Another example, Hamburg is committed to achieve the Sustainable Cities SDG, particularly by expanding public transport and the metro. Two completely new metro lines are currently under construction, which will provide 400,000 Hamburg residents with a direct link to the rapid transit network. The metro in Hamburg has been running on 100% green electricity for many years. And with a gradual development of an efficient cycle route network, cycling traffic in Hamburg has more than doubled since 2011. Ladies and gentlemen, the Hamburg Senate is convinced that by working together, cities can make faster progress in the transformation process required for sustainable development. As centers of business, industry, science, and culture, as places of social and technological progress, innovative cities around the world should share their knowledge and experience, join forces, and develop common strategies. Hamburg, for example, is working with Helsinki and Nantes on the digitalization of energy systems and electromobility. Together with London and Copenhagen, we are testing sustainable concepts for the construction industry. We are developing international green hydrogen trade corridors with major port cities in Chile, Uruguay, and Argentina. And we are working with our twin city, Dar es Salaam, on recycling and the circular economy. Ms. Msuya, I'm delighted that you have come to Hamburg to take part in this panel discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, urbanization is a mega trend of the 20th and 21st century. Since 2007, the urban population has outnumbered the rural population. Around 4 billion people, more than half the world's population, now live in urban areas. By 2050, up to 2/3 of humanity will live in an urban environment, especially in dense cities. Therefore, the decisive steps in implementing the SDGs must be taken in cities and urban areas. The better we work together, the faster we can make the progress we need. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for setting up this great panel now. We are uniting unique different perspectives. We have a perspective from one of Africa's fastest growing cities, Salaam. We have from a small island state, St. Kitts and Nevis, a perspective, and from an international organization, the UNECE. So please, let me welcome our panel for today. Dr. Joyelle Clarke, Minister of Sustainable Development, Environment and Climate Action and Constituency Empowerment of St. Kitts and Nevis. Welcome. Ms. Tatiana Molcean, Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe. Welcome. And from our partnership city, the Acting City Director of Dar es Salaam, Tabu Shaibu. Welcome all here today. Welcome to our lovely city of Hamburg. I must ask you, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Great. Because you have arrived at the perfect time. You have an authentic weather, not too harsh, but this is how we are. This is, the city is a shining city, but most of the sun shines in the hearts of the people. Wow. Is that... But make no mistake, we are very welcoming here, very welcoming and very achieving into when we look at achieving sustainable cities, as our first mayor already mentioned. So I would like to generally see that we have a common understanding In your opinion, what are the pillars? What is a sustainable city? And in as much as we work towards it, it's important to have a vision for how this sustainable city will look like maybe in 10, 20 years. So please briefly share with us what your sustainable city is.
Well, thank you, and thank you so much to the mayor for having me and for inviting the perspective of a small island state. St. Kitts and Nevis is the smallest nation in the Western Hemisphere. And for us, a sustainable city is one that's inclusive. It's one that allows every person in that city to thrive, to live their best lives. And it's one that's smart, climate resilient, and it's also one that absorbs persons in the formal and informal sector, because not everyone can be included in the formal sector. So for us, that's sustainability, and of course, with circular economy at the heart of it. Yes.
Thank you.
Well, it's quite difficult to add something to that. It's about having really this in place to be sustainable. But I'll be very frank, I don't think it's a difference between having a sustainable city, a sustainable country, a sustainable family. It's to really respond to the challenges that we are all facing and to respond to this challenge in a sustainable way. So addressing the crises, be it climate, be it other challenges that we are, the wars that we are facing. So this is the way to achieve a sustainability, to respond to all these crises in a reliable way.
Yeah, thank you very much. I feel to be honored to be here to the session. It's my first time to be in a standard like this. For me, or for the Dar es Salaam city perspective on sustainable cities, city which puts systems and plans that extend beyond election cycles. When we say election cycles, we mean that the one who comes in power should be in a place to make sure that the system which is in place, or the plan to deliver services to the comfort of the citizens. And so you can guarantee the long-term services and the continuous services to the citizens. So for us, it's the system and the plans that goes beyond the election cycle. So you mean that.
You mentioned an important part when you say it goes beyond the election cycle.
Yes.
And when I mentioned division, and I know when looking from a political aspect, of course, one has to think in political periods that one is obviously in charge of. Nevertheless, when we talk about achievable, sustainable cities, what would your vision be like 10 years from now? How do you see Dar es Salaam? How do you see Bastere? And how do you see, for instance, the UNEC achieving or helping cities to achieve that goals or that vision? Let's call it vision first.
Well, certainly, I agree that we have to look beyond electoral cycles, but as a politician, it's very difficult. It's extremely difficult, and we force ourselves into the 5-year electoral cycle. But what would be important is for us to recognize that the plans or the visions that we have must be so comprehensive and must be so inclusive that regardless of which administration is in power, they can continue with the ideas. And for St. Kitts and Nevis, we decided that we wanted to transition to a sustainable island state. And at the hub of this transition is Bastere and Charlestown, because they are the hubs of our economy. More than half of our population live in Bastere. It is 52% of our GDP. It's tourism, it's shipping, it's environmental services, and it's water. So any vision for sustainability includes Bastere and Charlestown in Nevis, but more importantly, our vision is about people. If people cannot thrive and survive in Bastere in 10 years or in 20 years, then there will be no St. Kitts and Nevis, because that's the heart of our economy. So we envision sustainability around people, around inclusivity, around economic and social justice, and most importantly, around climate justice, where every single livelihood can excel. Every single sector can excel because and everything that the government offers is accessible, it's attainable, and it's fair. So that for us is sustainability and sustainable cities, which is around people and their access to government services.
I would like to reflect on a few issues that the mayor already have highlighted. In fact, cities are at the front when we speak about sustainability globally. We speak about the SDGs, yes. Who is to implement? Is it the governments that is only, governments are to be responsible for achieving the agenda or accelerating the efforts for achieving the SDGs? In fact, in many cases, judging by the data that we have about the population, how many people live in cities, now it's the city, the mayors are at the front in addressing many of these challenges. This is why at UNICE, we have really tried hard to involve mayors in particular in a format that would allow them to be part not only as, let's say, part of a delegation, of a governmental delegation, but to have a voice by themselves in the multilateral discussions when we talk about sustainability. We've been having for 4 years, so this year, just last week in Geneva, we had the Forum of Mayors, which is in itself a platform to bring together mayors. So not mayors as part of the delegation of country X, Y, Z. It's a separate delegates who discuss topic related to global, but also specific agenda like urban housing has been the key, social housing being the key topic, but also implementing the Pact of the Future that was just adopted in New York. So this is one key aspect when we talk about cities of the future, the vision for the future. It's where we have really cities as actors, as participating in the multilateral dialogue when we talk about sustainability. So not only implementing what is being designed, but also being those who shape the policies. And this is why we also have been supporting throughout the years, for example, cities in localizing the SDGs. So we have developed guidelines. I know in certain countries that's not, there are own internal strong resources to do so, but there are countries that need support in order to realize this local voluntary reviews of the SDGs, and we've been supporting this for many years in different parts of the region, at least in UNICE, but I know that my colleagues from other regional commissions are doing the same. So when I'm talking about and how do we envisage the cities of the future and sustainable cities of the future, it's also, I think, one important part, the more general part, is cities with the voice in the multilateral processes, I would say. So this is one key takeaway that I would say is important now.
Yeah. For me to insist on the sustainable city, as I say, that you have to have a system, the system which is, and the plan which is inclusive, that every key actors has a role to play. So whenever you put your plans, you should consider who are the main actors on this so that it becomes more sustainable. That one is supposed to do 1, 2, 3, 4. That's why I'm saying that during the election cycle, the one who is coming to power should know who is going to play on what role, so that you can go together. See, it doesn't mean that after the first phase, then this is over. But you need to have a long-term plan so one knows. So the issue of transparency, that's one should know. Okay, this is for 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to be implemented maybe in 2 years to come, 4 years to come. So the inclusion, the actors, who are the actors on this? You should, as a city, you cannot go alone. You need to include each and everything. See the interest of everyone. So you come into board. So that's what I can see that should be known. Who are the actors? What do you want? What do you need? What's your way towards to?
Thank you. All of you have emphasized, let's say, the role, who should carry out what in terms of transparency, in terms of clarity, what role should be taken by whom, ideally, beyond the legislation period. But what's interesting for me when you say, I heard from you that you are very much looking into inclusion and including the people, that everybody is taking away. You mentioned justice, climate justice. And when you said you're the smallest island state, and indeed, if it's such a small city in that sense, how easy, or it is much easier to carry out a plan if the population is not as huge compared to metropole city, a city that is growing. So maybe you could let us know, are some plans, blueprints that you put in action, very quickly executed?
Thank you for that question. So size is always something for St. Kitts and Nevis. I mean, everybody asks, we're just about 50,000 persons. That's the size of a small town in some places. But regardless of size, the challenges are real. And when I speak to including persons, what we do have is a lot of climate migrants, and we do have persons from other Caribbean countries moving to St. Kitts, and this is part of our colonial history. We went to their islands, they're coming to our islands, and they have to be integrated in our urban space. And because we're a coastal nation and we're highly vulnerable, we have to make provisions for housing, for dealing with sea level rise, for dealing with the storm surge during a hurricane, and most of our infrastructure is also coastal. So we have to consider all of that in planning and mapping out a resilient Bastia and a smart Bastia, and that blueprint for us has been the transformation to a sustainable island state, because this includes all of society, our migrant population, our private sector, our NGOs and CSOs. What do you want Bastia and Charlestown to look like in 20 years? And we've spoken with everyone, and we've partnered with the University of the West Indies, and that's a regional university, one of our strongest universities in the Caribbean, to give us that blueprint of how do we do this, and then we twin that with our SDGs, so it's our SDG accelerator model. So we're gonna achieve by 2030, but we've added 10 more years just because of our size and the challenges with resources to ensure that when we transition, every single person who resides in Bastia or Charlestown is included in that transition.
And when you speak about Bastia, are there other islands, other cities on the island where you collaborate, where you share knowledge or best practices?
Of course. So Charlestown is on the island of Nevis. It's the smaller of the two islands, and of course what we do in St. Kitts translates to Bastia. But more importantly, we have regional coordination and collaboration with the organization of the OECS, the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, OECS, and then with CARICOM. And in these regional spaces, we are able to share ideas to understand what is Grenada doing to make its own capital city more resilient? How did Antigua and Barbuda respond after hurricanes Irma and Maria? And we're using those examples to make sure that Bastia and Charlestown are equally resilient and can provide for the people who reside in those areas.
Thank you for sharing this. When you discussed already the guidelines that you provide voluntarily for different cities, different places in the world, depending on how much they needed, what are the other implementations or action plans that you would say so far you have enough data that you said, this worked out very well, this is something really could be taken one-to-one in another city with similar natural challenges or opportunities?
Well, one thing is for certain, there's not ever enough data to say, so there's always a need for more data, for more information. But we are pleased that it's not only UNECE, but together with other 16 UN agencies, we have developed this United for Smart Sustainable Cities initiative, so basically doing these profiles of the smart sustainable cities profiles for the really for the local authorities to be able to map the needs to see where to develop and which or in which way is the best to develop in order to be sustainable. But I would like to emphasize now a few more concrete aspects, so not speaking only general about the SDGs and how we support countries or cities to assess where they are in being according to the each target from the SDGs. Resilience and development and building resilience for the cities. We have now major projects in Ukraine, in Kharkiv and Mykolaiv, for example, two cities that some of them are still under shelling these days, at least for sure when we speak about Kharkiv. And we have been working to support them to develop the master plans, but also the legislation at the central level that would allow for a more sustainable reconstruction and rebuilding back after the war is over. So what I wanted to emphasize here that we are working both with the cities, but we also need good policies at the central level to be able to implement those policies in the cities. We also work, because at UNICE we have quite a strong normative and standard setting agenda on example on building materials, that they are energy efficient. You know, in many countries we still have very old standards that pose a challenge when you attractive in investments, because having investment for doing many projects is a key challenge, but once you start, even if you have all the political will in the world, you get stuck in some standards when it comes to the construction material. So you just cannot do it. So this is one very practical way of addressing something. So looking at the new standards that are eco or climate resilient and not only. Another key area is road safety, and I think we have been yesterday at a very wonderful get-together with the women, I think, with the minister that has launched this. But we discussed also about the importance, for example, road safety in cities. At UNICE, we are hosting the Road Safety Fund, and the cities are really key partners when we address challenges related to road safety. So we have been working, at least in my region, Armenia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, and many more countries in order to really do the profiles of the cities and see what are the biggest challenge, why we have so high so high numbers when it comes to accidents, when it comes to deaths on the road. So this is another way how we are supporting the cities really to meet and to become more sustainable by addressing these challenges. And another very concrete aspect, because I think what the minister was saying about the importance of sharing experience with their neighborhood, even if we are today here in the panel a lot of women, yes, only women, I say it's good that we had a certain gender balance with the mayor opening it. But we have noticed that the last week Forum of Mayors, we had, well, in total 400 participants, but mayors or deputy mayors, they were around 70. It was so difficult to find mayors, women mayors. It was very difficult, so because we organized a panel and we were struggling to find the panelists. So who are the mayors? So I think we had Lusaka, Glasgow, someone from Malaysia. So we had to really handpick. There are really a few women in mayors globally, and it's not only in the UNICE region, it's globally. And I think we cannot address many of the sustainability pledges as long as we don't have equal gender, or at least coming closer to the equal balance. So one thing that we are trying to do is to encourage this networking among women mayors to learn best how to promote themselves, but also to have policies, even if it's not a woman mayors, but gender-responsive urban policies, if I can put it like this. So this is another area that we are working now on.
I actually very much like that you addressed this part, because when we look at sustainability, it's a very complex topic, and literally this time will not be enough to address all features, but mentioning as well gender or female involvement when we talk about sustainability, about preserving literally life, if you want to put it very generally. It's an interesting fact that you see, or you've recognized that not only there is a gap, but there needs to be something to strengthen basically maybe the next, because we spoke about envisioning the next 5, 10, 20 years. Maybe that's one thing, that we have a vision that we just don't have to handpick female mayors anymore, but we can just choose who is free and who we want to talk to, and how we can share and expand. And road safety, mobility, transportation. I think maybe this is also a very crucial element in a city like Dar es Salaam, which is so big, which is so fastly growing. So maybe you could share a bit about sustainable transportation and how Dar es Salaam is tackling this or seeing this as an opportunity.
Yeah, thank you very much, the moderator. When you look at the core principle of the sustainable city. One should be the well coordinated. The issue of mobility, for our case, Dar es Salaam, the city is now developing the BRT system with 6 corridors. The first phase, which is from Kimara to Kivukoni, has been very successful. And the people are using it very, very happy. And I want to assure that with the completion of the other 4 corridors, we expect more than half of the population will be using the BRT system. So the issue of mobility, if you are talking about the sustainable city, that should be. And I think this is a takeaway, the BRT for other cities. They can come and see how Dar es Salaam has been successful on that. And we are all aware that during 2019, it was awarded that's the best project. And also some of the steps which the Dar es Salaam city has taken is that the city has constructed more drainage system, which tremendously reduced the floods in poor neighborhoods, as we have. I know each and everybody knows how it stains when it's raining in Dar es Salaam. So with the construction of more drainage system under DMDP project, at least now Dar es Salaam is very comfortable. So the living condition of the citizens has been improved. Also, another area which you have taken a step on it is it comes of our partnership with Hamburg as the goal that partnership for.
Please tell us more.
Yeah. The construction of Mabwepande compost sites, with the support of City of Hamburg, has improved the management of waste, the market waste. The compost produce is used to produce organic to the appreciation of the citizen. It's one of the best fertilizer from that plant. So you see, it's the plant, the fertilizers is using for crop production. So from the waste to the food. So that's with this, it's a big achievement. So the issue of zero waste here is something to be taken to. But also because the cities, we do share knowledge, we do share expertise, and people are learning from this project. I want to assure that after 3 or 4 years, some small facilities which are the same, replicate the same as Mabwepande compost sites, you'll find many of them in Dar es Salaam. Mr. Nati here can add more on that. So we think on that area of compost sites, but also we are talking about the issue of women, how do we empower? For our case, we think that with the installation of solar street lights, currently about 585 solar streets has been installed. So it makes more safe for the women who are conducting business during nighttime. So at least the issue of women there, they have been taken into board.
Thank you also for drawing attention to this, because when I was thinking about how to do this, I was thinking like this unique perspectives that you all bring individually will help as well to address blind spots in the sense of, you know, we talk about renewable energy, solar panels, how we get funding for it, etc., pp. But actually bringing it down to, we have X amount established, X amount more light and energy that creates safety for women to conduct business. That is what I call sustainability, and that is actually what we are looking at, and that is such a great, great example and thinking further. So thank you also for sharing this. Also, I am very happy that at this mayor's panel you are mentioning the great collaboration between Hamburg. So that this one has also been successful fruitfully. And one thing that I felt like renewable energy is an important part, and also you mentioned the drainage and floodage. So I was thinking vulnerable being to natural climate challenges. How is a city like Bastia and generally the island doing climate resilience?
Thank you for that question. So, despite our increasing vulnerabilities, Bastia, Charleston, St. Kitts and Nevis, we're pretty resilient. I mean, we've gone through very intense colonial past. We've had fires, we've been destroyed by earthquakes, by tropical storms, and yet we survive. And it is the most beautiful city in the Caribbean. And you should visit.
I will.
But our story of resilience, again, as I said, is a story of how a people have decided to work collectively to preserve Bastia. So one thing that visitors always say when you come, you'll say the same thing. It's very beautiful. The people are very warm, and it's as if you walked into history by walking into Bastia. But the resilience is part of government accepting its own responsibility for absorbing the cost of services, similarly for municipal services, for providing spaces for people to have their livelihoods, and for always responding to the needs of the population. So we've been through that shift from an agrarian economy, from sugar, where predominantly we planted sugar. The women in our country were sugarcane workers. And then we decided it was time to transition to tourism, and the government supported that transition by making skills, upgrading skills and training free, completely free to every single person who needed it. And now we're a tourism-based economy with investment migration as part of the key injection in terms of GDP. And again, we're providing support there. So for us, it's always about how we include people, support, and then also maintain what is truly unique about Bastia. And that is a place where people can thrive.
So is tourism as being a pillar that you mentioned, is that also taking a shift into sustainable ecotourism? Are there some examples or plans in the pipeline?
A few years ago, St. Kitts and Nevis, we were named one of the most sustainable destination globally. And that didn't come without serious effort, and that included establishing an interagency for sustainable development. We also decided that our tourism product would be more than just sun, sea, and sand, but wanted you to venture deeper. That's our catchphrase, venture deeper, experience our country, experience our food, our people, our music, and protect it at the same time. So sustainable tourism for us, it's the backbone of our economy, because if you destroy the one thing that we have, which is St. Kitts and Nevis, then there's nothing. We don't grow, we don't survive. So that's why sustainable tourism has been our push for the past 20 years. And we want it to be more than just greenwashing tourism. It's community, it's people, and it's livelihoods. And that's the key to our sustainability profile for tourism.
Thank you for sharing this, and also for those of you who have not planned their holidays, they are sustainable holidays. Maybe you should take a note. You've done an excellent job. Even I am very curious. And another thing that I wanted to come back was like doing basically focusing more power to mayors. And I wanted to know so far what has been the feedback on this. How has this worked? Is basically the shift going into the direction that you have envisioned?
I would say that the mayors already have a lot of powers, and actually, in fact, they are, as I was saying, always the first one reacting to the many challenges that are happening. And on one side, we have to make sure, and this is our capacity as AUN, as an international organization, to create the necessary frameworks at the national level that enables the local level, the mayors, to really act upon the commitments, their engagement. So one key priority was to create the nationally, for example, legislation for urban planning. In many countries, you would see that there is missing this framework or the legislation that really allows for a sustainable way of doing that and putting sustainability. So while working on that, working on standards, this goes with a lot with the central level, but having the contribution of cities. So this is key. We do not make or we do not develop this abstractly in the committees with representatives, I don't know, Ministry of Infrastructure, Ministry of Energy or Transport. We usually have also the voices of those who have to implement after this. It's also about setting one of the key challenges, and I would like to reflect upon this. So we have seen that in many cases the local authorities, the cities, besides the biggest challenge when we ask, and it does not depend really if we talk which part of the world we talk, or if it's a big city or a small city. So this is one challenge, this not relationship, but really there are enabling policies from the central level. That's one key, and the second is financing. So financing, in all the discussions that we have had, I think all the mayors have highlighted this. Financing, securing the finance, but then also continuity of financing. While, let's say, we cannot address some of the major in terms of attracting this financing, but we have looked into the ways to facilitate investments, and investments in particular through public-private partnerships. This is the key, this is the future, really, to look in private-public partnerships. This is why we have launched, it's been around for a couple of years already, and again, it's a global instrument for anyone to use it. It's a UN instrument. It's a platform to assess public-private projects, infrastructure projects, against SDGs. And we have done this for cities, for example, for waste management, for street lighting. You were saying about street lighting, e-mobility, battery charging, and greening public buildings. It's a very important tool, in particular for smaller cities which do not have big capacities, because usually when you talk to IFCs, it's about large infrastructure projects, huge ones. So no one looks into the smaller projects, which are very important for a community, but not in the interest of IFCs. So this is one way, and a very important one, that I think we can contribute to solving or trying to solve or address one of the biggest challenges. This is financing. So to facilitate this matchmaking between the private and the public sector. So.
Thank you for sharing this, that financing. I mean, we have a lot of panels even dealing with that topic today, and yeah, financing has always been a major issue, even addressed already previously by the Prime Minister of Barbados. But coming now to a closing, unfortunately, our time is heading, it's moving fast. One thing I would want to know, because all of you mentioned this part, and at the key of your endeavors, the community, the people of the country, of the city are always at the heart. So I was just wondering, and how far do you create this awareness within your communities, awareness in terms of sustainability in business, in schools? Like, how is this approach happening and fostered?
Right, I'm happy you asked that question, and I'll use the story of our single-use plastic recycling program in St. Kitts and Nevis. And it was only a success because students who were involved in collecting plastic bottles, in competitions, parents got involved. It was so intense. Every day you would see students walking around the communities, collecting these bottles, taking them to school, taking their pictures, weighing them. And this was a partnership with the Solid Waste Management Corporation, the government of St. Kitts, the Republic of China and Taiwan, and the Organization of the Eastern Caribbean States, and the Ministry of Education. That's how we get people involved. Now, our Prime Minister is a champion of our Sustainable Island State agenda. In every speech, he says it. And now what has happened is people believe it and they understand it. Of course, we have to do the groundwork. But when you hear a child in their independence essay or poem say, and we want St. Kitts and Nevis to become a sustainable island state, you know the message is carrying. And it's because of the partnership with education. So that's what we're doing. Every environmental and climate agenda involves the youth, their voices, their ideas, and their stories.
Thank you so much for sharing this.
Thank you very much. the issue of inclusion. For the Dar es Salaam city, the issue of sustainability has been accepted by all. And we are all know or witness that our president is a champion of the using of clean energy. So you see the women have accepted and they are very eager. It has got a very speed because from the presidency or the subordinates who are supporting the president, they also, you see the political support from all the leaders, they do. So we sing the same song that we need a clean environment. And then how do we go? So everyone is trying to see how are we going to contribute to this. So because the women are in good numbers, we have said here, the role of women. So the women are very, very positive on this using the clean energy. So you see that we are all focusing to make the city sustainable. My contribution is as women, but also in our schools, we see the students, we have environmental clubs there, so they know, this is our world, then we should do 1, 2, 3, 4. So the clubs in the schools, the women's in their business, using the clean energy, because they are in good number in most of our markets, so they do business or they make these foods, so they need to see that whatever they're doing is not going to harm. So everyone is contributing.
I would like to reinforce the message of the importance of really investing in education for sustainable development. And this year at the Summit of the Future, when taking the floor, that was the key message. I mean, you're not allowed a lot to speak, but that was the key message from my side as well. We have to invest in the youth, in the children, because when we'll have to negotiate something similar to the Pact of the Future as we did now, so we won't have a situation like we trading off between, let's see, climate or human rights or things like that. So to be confident that future generation will be able immediately to make the right choice, be it about climate, social development, or economic sustainable development. So.
Thank you so much. This was already our mayor's panel. Thank you so much for each of your contribution. It was amazing to have you here on this stage here in Hamburg. Thank you so much. Thank you also to the audience.